What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the Casual Nerd. Today, I have I would consider you one of my best friends, actually, at this point, Tony
Yeah,
Polanco. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast.
yeah. Thank you for having me. And yes, best friend would be accurate. You're definitely one of my best friends as well.
What is it? As the kids say, ooh woo or some shit? I don't know. They
I
say
don't know.
fucking ooh woo. You know,
Yeah.
but we're going to be talking about a bunch of just topics today. We're going to be basically chilling with you guys, talking about PlayStation, talking about Call of Duty, talking about all the fun stuff. First off, I actually want to ask what you're playing, because I have a bit of a long list as to what I'm going through. So I want to hear what you're going over right now.
Okay. What I'm allowed to talk about, you mean? um, I will say this though. It's funny. I kind of talked about this on the last show we were on, and I could really talk about it because I said the thing I was most excited for was the Marvel vs. Capcom collection. These are all the games that I played when I was a teenager. Loved them. So I played the game obviously when it came. Actually, I got the review code before it came out. Played it, and that just reignited my love of fighting games. As I've said many times, I'm now fully back in the dojo. I picked up Street Fighter 6 again. Been playing that online a lot. Doing the campaign stuff again, and it's just really fun to because I don't talk about it too much because I kind of fell off of fighting games. Ironically enough, because of Street Fighter 5, that was such a disappointment. I think I'm done. Then there was other things. But yeah, so I've been playing nonstop Street Fighter 6 and Marvel vs. Capcom for the past 2 months. And it kind of made it, and it, this is going to sound really weird. It made me say, I was like, huh, I remember this. I remember what it used to be like to be a gamer. Because most of the time, a lot of the games I play are for review, and it's very rare I play games for my own enjoyment. So not only playing games that I want for fun, but a genre that was integral to me. Like all I did in the 90s was just play fighting games. Street Fighter 2, obviously, that set things off, all the Capcom games. And now I'm even dabbling into other franchises that I knew about and, have seen. But since I was such a Capcom fanboy, I didn't touch. So I started dabbling with some King of Fighters. And that was because Terry Bogart from Fatal Fury and King of Fighters, he's in Street Fighter 6. He's so good in that. I'm like, I need to get into some King of Fighters. So I've been enjoying some of that. I even bought, okay, back it up a little bit. So ironically, as all this was happening, PlayStation had like a month-long sale of a bunch of stuff. So I picked up a bunch of fighting games for cheap. A King of Fighters, a bunch of Blaze Blue games. And then the big one, they had like the special ultra mega edition of Tekken 7, which is $120 for $20. I'm like, so I bought it. And with Tekken, funny story about that. One of the reasons I never played Tekken, two reasons I didn't play Tekken. One is because I was a Sega Saturn guy back in the day. So, and I was a dumb teenager. So I had to hate on PlayStation out of principle. And what was the main fighting game on Sega? Virtua Fighter, right? So I always saw Tekken as a ripoff of Virtua Fighter. I'm like, fuck Tekken, all about Virtua Fighter. And that carried over even when the Dreamcast died and PlayStation came out. I'm like, I'm not playing with Tekkens. But now I'm like, there are no more 3D fighting games other than Tekken. But also speaking about Virtua Fighter, I saw that it was on sale for $5. The latest iteration of VF5. I was playing that. I'm like, ooh, I remember this feeling too. So yeah, I just been playing a crap ton of fighting games, having a blast. It really reconnected me with my old self and stuff. And now I'm even more into them. I started listening to it's called the Triple KO podcast. It has Maximilian Dude, Justin Wong, the legend Justin Wong, and Matt Muscles. And I just love hearing these three guys talk about the history of fighting games, their personal stories and stuff. And me kind of yelling, it's like, mention this game, mention this game, mention this game, and then they eventually do, which is even better. Like these obscure, crazy fighting games that people don't remember, like World Heroes and Primal Rage and all this other stuff.
Oh gosh, I remember that.
yeah, that's actually not too obscure. Bring it back, please. But it's like, art of fighting is not too obscure. But I remember people remember Clay Fighters or Pit Fighter was terrible. There was just a lot. And then also made me realize there's a lot of indie fighting games, new ones. I'm like, whoa, this is some good stuff. So it's kind of fun to see that spirit out there. Bought myself. Okay, by the way, this is funny. So I'm a guy who cannot justify buying a new pair of like jeans because they're $30, but I'm more than willing to buy a $200 controller, which I did. It's insane.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So I bought it's called the Victrix Pro controller, and it's cool because you can actually like change the buttons. Like, you know how normal buttons is like four face buttons and an analog stick. You could swap that out for 6 buttons, like on a fighting pad. You know, so it's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what I've been playing lately. We could maybe talk about this a little bit. I also did play a little bit of Until Dawn. I really like the graphics, but like I was telling you off air, I think I may have outgrown that whole horny teenagers being murdered by a crazy person genre. I'm just like, I like these people are terrible. I hope they all die. You know,
you're just annoying. Please go away.
Yeah, and I'm also, since talking about Capcom, I'm also insanely excited for the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. Like, it's coming next week. I'm going to be as much as I possibly can, because when Monster Hunter World came out, which was my obsession for like 2 years straight, me and the boys were just playing that. We were in streaming and on Throwdown. We went in with that game. Yeah, but back then I was a freelancer. I had more free time. Now I'm like, I got to balance this with work, because, like, for example, the open beta, the first one, starts at 11 p.m. I'm like, bro, that's when I got to go to bed. What are we doing?
I feel that to my fucking core, because it's like most of my friends are just like, you want to do like a live stream, or do you want to like hang out? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. What time? They're like 9 o'clock. I'm like, at night?
At night?
No way, I'm not doing that at night. In the morning, yes, I will be very happy to. But at night, I am asleep. I have my cozy tea. I am reading a book. I realize how old I sound now.
Yeah, yes, but no, I hear you. So I'm like, oh, at night, so, but I'll try to sneak in, because it's going to be fantastic. So yeah, that's what I've been indulging in. And again, I don't really see myself stopping anytime soon. Again, the fire has been lit when it comes to fighting games. Like, this is the feeling I used to have when I was a kid. Every day after school, me and my boys would get together and beat the shit out of each other in fighting games. It was great. But now I'm actually like incorporating like better ways of playing, trying to improve myself and stuff, because I'm a very, very aggressive fighter and stuff. And I was like, Tony, hang back a little bit, actually react to what the opponent's doing, not just what you want to do, so it's been fun going back in the dojo. By the way, the fighting game community, the FGC, they call that going into the lab, which is going to training, training mode. But I'm like, me and my friends, we always called it the dojo. So I'm going to keep calling it that. It sounds more appropriate.
I played Mortal Kombat actually for the first time this year.
Ooh.
And it was my first experience. And surprisingly, the only reason why I didn't like the game was everything else I thought was pretty cool. Like, the fighting mechanics were on another level. It's like if Dark Souls were a fighting game. Like, I absolutely thought it was so cool. But the one thing that just did not click with me was how much fucking gore there is. My God. Like, you see a guy's spleen just explode from the back of his head, and I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? Like, that's a part I can't even look at the screen when some of those cutscenes are happening.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and now you brought back a memory. I remember this was during a bowling trip when I was like 12, right? I don't really care for bowling, but what did I see in the arcade section? This game with digitized people that look real, ripping each other's spines out and like killing each other. I'm like, this is amazing. You understand? I'm 12 years old. I'm a gore hound. I love that stuff. People just ripping each other apart and stuff. So I was so obsessed with Mortal Kombat for a while. Like, for a little bit, this is gonna sound crazy, I couldn't even play Street Fighter for a bit. I'm like, where's the blood? No one's dying here. Like, no matter how hard I fight, I'm not going to kill anybody. But then obviously when the Mortal Kombat phase kind of died down for me, I went back to Street Fighter. I'm like, oh yeah, this controls way better. This is a better game. And it's funny, I hadn't touched Mortal Kombat since Mortal Kombat 3. And then I played not the one you played, but the one before it, Mortal Kombat 11, I believe it was. And because I had to review it, I'm like, oh, this game's still stiff. Like, the controls are still stiff the way I remember them. So yeah, I still obviously respect Mortal Kombat, a big part of my life, but it's not. Yeah, it's not Street Fighter. It doesn't have that smoothness. And remember, I was telling you, I was talking all that shit about Tekken, but when I 30 seconds into playing Tekken 7, I'm like, oh, that's the good stuff. Oh, that's the good stuff right there. It feels so smooth.
You see, the way you are with fighting games is the way I am with Resident Evil. I'm going through right now currently for a review. I know I've said this to you off camera, but for the remasters of the originals for Resident Evil, and going through that is like a warm hug. Like there is nothing like it. Because I didn't play the original Resident Evil when I was a kid. I played the remake of the original in 2003.
Interesting. Okay. So the GameCube remake, right?
GameCube remake.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know you didn't play the original ones.
The original one I did play, but I had to go over to my niece's house each time to play it because we didn't have it at our house.
Okay, did you play 2 and 3, the original ones?
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, the original one of 2 and 3 I did play. I played up to, I think, the halfway point of 2. Then after that, I didn't play it anymore. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were fantastic. Those were fun games. Again, Capcom was my favorite company back in those days. Like, again, not only was I obsessed with their fighting games, but I love Resident Evil. Here's the thing. I'm not really a horror guy, but I love me some Resident Evil. I played the first Resident Evil. A lot of people don't know this. It was on the Sega Saturn. I played on there. But my friend also had it on PlayStation. So I would check that out. I'm like, oh, man, that looks way better. But I remember this is before it even came out in America. We went to our local game store, had an import version of Resident Evil, and he was playing it on the television. I'm like, yo, what is that? This is insane. And then I would eventually play, because I didn't own a PlayStation back in the day because I was a hater. I played Resident Evil 2 and 3 because they got ported to the Dreamcast.
Oh my God, I remember the Dreamcast.
Yes. So, but because of that, since I played 2 and 3 together, and remember, a lot of those games, like half of 3 is basically half of 2. So I forget what happens in which. They kind of meld together. But yeah, those were good games. But ironically, and I remember during that time, I always wanted to play the GameCube version because it looked amazing, right? And then that version eventually came to the PS4, and I couldn't play it because I'm like, I don't know how I dealt with these controls back in the day. This is terrible. And then when I switched to modern controls, it didn't work because when the camera shifted, the controls would shift. You know, so I'm like, I can't play with the original controls. I can't play with the new controls. I can't deal with this.
Part of me actually prefers, I don't know why, but part of me prefers tank controls for some reason.
It works better. No, it's because it works better. It works better because basically, no matter how much the cameras shift, your up will always be up no matter what.
Yeah, but I think that's really interesting that you mentioned that because that was the first, like, as you know, that was the first video game I ever played in my existence. So, like, my dad telling my mom basically, like, I'm not getting her a Barbie game. I want to see what these graphics look like. Plus, she looks interested in it. And he didn't realize that he was literally creating an entire career.
Yes, that's awesome.
But yeah, I'm actually going to get into what games I'm reviewing currently. The camera's probably going to follow me, but that's okay. It'll probably, nope, it's not going to follow me too much. Okay, so I'm going over, which ones can I talk about? I can't talk about one, but there's one that's coming at the end of the month that I'm going to be reviewing. And the ones that I'm basically going through right now in its immediacy are the ones that Capcom sent me for Resident Evil, the trilogy, and Neo 1. Which I am, it's okay. It's not great. And I know probably I'm going to piss a lot of people off. But it's one of those games of where, like, the bosses are fun. They're really intricate and the controls are really well done with them. But everything that's in between is either bad control work or the story just isn't there. It's not solidified enough, so for me it was just like a hit or miss which section is going to be, and I'm still like in the early part of the game. I'm in the last part of chapter 2 of Neo.
Okay.
So and I'm doing a playthrough of the iconic Silent Hill 2 remake, and most of these games actually are PS5 games. I'm just noticing that right now. I'm not a shell, okay? I'm not a shell, but I love
there's
them.
A PlayStation right there, so
exactly.
Let's
see, I'm going over the DLC for Diablo 4.
Oh, cool.
So excited. Let's see, Stellar Blade. I cannot wait to get into this one because a lot of people are
Fantastic
telling.
game.
Oh, it is okay because so many
Oh
people are
yeah,
telling me how good
fantastic.
it is.
Yeah, it's great. One of my probably my favorite new game of the year so far. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. The combat is it reminds me of place. This is actually in the best way possible. Some people will take this in a bad way, but this is actually in the best way possible. It reminds me of the PS2 era because you used to get games like that all the time, and then they kind of stopped. Like the last game I played like that was Near Automata. You know,
Oh,
um,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and you can
Okay.
tell that game is very, very inspired by Nier Automata. Obviously, they're going to have 2B. You know, there's a crossover going to happen soon. So yeah, you could tell. So I want to actually. It's funny you bring that game up because I want to try to get the platinum for it because I'm very close. I just got to get like all the Coke cans and 2 of the other endings, and then I'll have the platinum.
Oh, there are multiple endings with the game.
Mhm. Yep, there's like 4 of them, I
Yes.
believe.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so exciting. Yeah, because a lot of people were telling me that Ariel, this is a Souls like. You're gonna like it. I'm like, this is not a Souls like from what I'm seeing.
No.
It runs more like Sekiro.
Yeah, I would suggest play the demo first so you get a feel for it before you dive into the game. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. The next one I'm going into, which grifters, you can hate this all you want, but fuck you. Star Wars Outlaws.
Oh boy,
I'm so excited.
very,
I love
yeah,
Star
very
Wars.
divisive game.
It's
I
just
really want to hear your thoughts
literally
on that. Yeah,
all because of how she looks, which is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. My God.
yeah.
Next up, and you already told me about how much you love this one, Astrobot.
Hey, let's go! Fantastic game. That's a game just like the Astrobot Adventure. That is a game. This is gonna sound weird at first, but just stick with me. That is a game I could erase from my mind, so I could replay it again from the beginning and re-experience it. It's so
Yeah.
good.
I get that feeling entirely. That's how I feel with Dark Souls 1. I want to
Yeah,
experience over again the Artorias boss battle. Like,
yeah.
hands down. This one, okay, so this next one, the marketing for it was shit. Like, I didn't even hear about it until the day before it came out.
I forgot that came out. I forgot that came out. When you brought it up, I'm like, oh yeah, that did come out. Alone in the Dark for people who are listening.
So, yeah, Alone in the Dark. And okay, so the next one is I have it on PC. The physical copy did not work. It would not upload to my Xbox
Uh-oh.
Series X, but I had a digital one, which is the first Bioshock. So I'll be going over that one.
Okay.
And let's see, this next one for all you Mass Effect fans, the very first Mass
Hey,
Effect.
let's go.
So excited. I'm so
Yes.
excited. And finally, Phobia. I didn't hear
Ooh,
about
what's
this
that
game
one?
before. I have no idea. I literally went to GameStop about, I want to say a year ago, and I saw this on the shelf, and I was like, this looks interesting. Purchase. So I thought, you know
Phobia
what?
with an F. Very interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because a lot of horror games, they don't really affect me that much anymore
Yeah.
unless it's like The Evil Within, Silent Hill, like a lot of those atmospheric horror games are very well done, but it's very hard to get me to actually be scared about something.
Yeah, same here.
So those are the ones I'm going over currently. Right now, I'm actually going to be starting, I believe, the Diablo DLC tonight, just going through it and seeing, because Diablo 4, I absolutely love so much. That was my entryway into the Diablo series.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and now I'm going over 3, just playing it for fun, and I absolutely love 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, no, to get into one of our next topics, actually, that I'm really excited about, because I was seeing the news on the PlayStation, I want to call it Slim. I don't know why I decided to call it Slim. PS Pro that's coming out. I'm very excited to see how people will see the difference, because, and this wasn't a slam. People thought that I was slamming others on Twitter. We're like, oh yeah, if you're a content creator, you can notice the difference. It's like, yeah, because you're editing videos, and if you pay that close attention to the screen and notice the frame drops or the frame rate, you're going to be able to notice it. So what is your opinion? Do you think that it'll be worth people's money from what you've seen Sony release so far?
Okay, so if it's like the PS4 to PS4 Pro experience, I think most people will notice the difference. Because I like basically games are running a lot smoother, right? And they'll also look sharper. And obviously the PS5 Pro has PSSR, PlayStation scaling resolution, which is it's basically their answer to Nvidia's DLSS, right? Where you could it basically renders stuff at like a lower resolution internally, but it outputs it at like higher resolution and then higher frame rate. So I think a good amount of people will notice a difference, but the real question is, will that matter? Because PlayStation 5 games, generally speaking, run very well already, right? So it may not be such a monumental leap as it was from PS4 to PS4 Pro, because a lot of PS4 games did not run at 60 frames, right? We do have a lot of games that do run at 60 frames. Remember, we've had performance mode this entire generation. People are used to that. But obviously, with the PS5 Pro, the promise is that you get the combination of quality mode and performance mode in one. We'll have to see how that works out in real life. But I think some people will notice it. But I still maintain, and I said this on Throwdown, my podcast, that for the average person, they don't need to buy this thing. You'll be perfectly fine with a PS5, regular PS5. But if the PlayStation is your only main primary console and you're a hardcore PlayStation ride or die person, get the system. You're going to be very happy. I know that may sound like I'm riding the fence, but it's just true. It's like, for the average person, you don't need a PS5 Pro. But if you're a PlayStation guy, get it, Absolutely, because it's going to be worth it. Like, if you're not playing on Xbox, you're not playing on PC, you're not playing on Nintendo, you're only playing PlayStation, why not get the PS5 Pro and get the best of all worlds? But if you're playing on everything, or maybe not playing a lot of PS5, you don't really need it,
Yeah, I feel that, because like, for me personally, like, I'm not going to be getting the PS5 Pro. I don't feel like I need it. I feel like right now, like, I have my own thoughts on the price point of it, but I feel as if the way that the PS5's hardware is done, it's so well designed that it's going to last me years and years. Same thing with the PS4, because the PS4 was my introductory into Sony. So when I was going about playing Death Stranding, for example, I played that on the PC and then I played it on PS4. And my God, like, the way that it ran, like, years later, it was still amazing.
Yeah, for sure. The PS5, it's just a great system. It wasn't like, because when the PS4 came out, it was very gimped from the outset. People were very upset about that. But PS5, when it first came out, it was rivaling some gaming PCs. Obviously that didn't last, but at the time it did. So you're still going to get a very good competent system. And let's just be honest, even Sony themselves have said we're already past the halfway point, right? So you're going to get probably another 4 years out of the system. I think you'll be fine. You're not going to miss anything. So, but with that said, I do think the PS5 Pro, I mean, it's already a success. It's, it's selling out. But in the end, it'll probably end up being about, or accounting for, about 10 to 12% of PS5 sales, just like the PS4 Pro. Again, this is a console for the absolute hardcore, for the whales, for the, first adopters, people like that. It's not meant to, because people are like, oh, like my favorite thing is like, little Timmy is not going to be able to justify $700 for this console for his mommy. That's like, this ain't for little Timmy, bro.
I don't know what parents, no offense to parents out there, I don't know what parents in their right mind that would get little Timmy a fucking $700 console right now, unless they have like a straight A student help the mom out every single day and do things like responsibly. But even then, it's one of those things where like $700 for the average consumer, a lot of money. It's no joke. Like, that's no fucking joke, especially in this economy. It's no joke. And for the people who can afford it, I'm so excited that they're going to get to play it. There's not going to be too many reviews for the average consumer, though, because that's not something that's going to be in their price point, most likely. But when I look at things, I'm trying to see what benefit it's going to bring, because when I tell people like the tier list of what they should buy or what they should purchase, it goes like, if you're going into portable gaming, get a Steam Deck. Absolutely. Get it. Yes. I don't personally have one, but get a Steam Deck. It's worth the money. From everything that I've seen, from all the reports that I've gotten through, whatever, you've told me about the Steam Deck, one of the most beneficial things to do.
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has this really awesome way of making things, how do I want to say this? Making things last for years and years unintentionally.
Yeah, and it's the only way to play Nintendo Switch exclusives. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I would say for people, if you have a really, really beefy PC, you don't need an Xbox. You just don't.
You don't. I don't. That's why I didn't buy an Xbox this generation. I'm like, my PC is more than capable. If I want to play an Xbox games, I know they don't come out very often. As a matter of fact, not to derail the conversation, I haven't bought a single Xbox game this generation. Nothing's compelled me to buy it.
Why do you think I only have literally three in my stack to review right now, and they're older?
Yeah. But if I were an Xbox guy, I would just play on my PC. Like, so I agree with that. Anyway, I'm sorry to derail, but I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
Because the thing is that the main reason why I have a console before anyone jumps down my throat about that is because I like a dedicated piece of hardware to be able to do my reviews on. If I'm going to be doing something, I want to make sure that my PC, for whatever reason, for modem connection, whatever it may be, I want to make sure that things are going to run smoothly. So I have that, but I also have maybe a second copy to review for the PC. And then at the very top of the list, I would put the PS5, because there's a lot of things that are on the PS5 that are not on PlayStation, that are not on Xbox or PC yet, like Bloodborne. Yeah. I know Returnal just came to PC. Yeah, it's just please, guys, come on, just do Bloodborne, the justice it deserves, and put it on the fucking PC. Seriously, my God, how long has it been already? And
people have been asking for years.
People have been asking for years. There's even a t-shirt. Listen, people are making shirts now. Come on. Like, I don't know. I'm just here. Like, I'm just a lonely Bloodborne fan. The next part I want to go into is the discussion of Call of Duty. It's that time of year again, Tony.
That time of year again. I can't believe it. The whole year has passed.
There's people who either really love Call of Duty, and then there are people who really are against it. There's never, I really see anybody in the middle of it, from what I've noticed.
Me, I'm the I don't care. So I guess I fall in that that part. But I do want to say, even though yes, this is yet another Call of Duty, this year is different because it's the first Call of Duty that's available day one on Xbox Game Pass after Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard. So it is different in that way. By the way, I don't know, for anybody that was watching, there was a moment about maybe 5 minutes ago where you may have seen me do a subtle, it's because I was looking at Twitter. You know what's trending right now? Ponies. And it's because of Call of Duty.
Guys, I have to be kind because of YouTube. But seriously, why is it that every single time people are like having an enjoyment of a game, it has to be like, pony? It's like, what? There are people who on Xbox and PC, like every single hardware that it's out besides the Switch, you can play Call of Duty on. Like, the one thing that, we were talking about before that you were saying on your other podcast is how it's available on Game Pass. That's their primary sale base, but you were talking about the achievements before, and that's something I really wanted to get into right now.
Yeah. Okay, so up front, this is a story that I'm still confused about. I don't have all the details, so just bear with me on that. But I read, and this has been confirmed too, because some people are doing some data mining or whatever, but nothing nefarious, just public stuff that's available. People you could dig into. Apparently, the PS5 version of Black Ops 6 will not have a platinum trophy, but the PS4 version will. And apparently, and this is where the confusion goes further, it's because the PS5 version is its attachment to a Call of Duty app is the reason for it. But I'm like, okay, I've never heard of this app before this, and how would that affect like the platinum? Because when I first heard the story, the conspiracist in me said, "Oh, are they not going to have a platinum to spite PlayStation because Xbox owns it?" But no, the PS4 version of the game will have a platinum trophy. And this is, I told you this off air, and I can tell you a full story. But as I said, it doesn't matter because Call of Duty people don't even bother with the campaign to begin with, so they're not even worried about the platinum. Okay, I don't know how it is set up with Black Ops 6, but in previous Call of Duty games, you could only get the platinum by playing through the campaign. All you had to do was literally finish the camp. You had to literally just finish the campaign, get the platinum. Most people never even bothered because the Call of Duty fan base only plays online. And this is a story I want to tell you, and I'm pretty sure everybody watching and listening will enjoy this. So this was 2013, my first E3. I went to go get lunch at one of their many food trucks, and I saw a guy in front of me with an Activision badge and Call of Duty. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I asked him, hey, who are you? What do you do? And he told me that he was a Call of Duty developer. And then I was like, I have to ask him this question. So I've had this nagging question in my head for years. Remember, this was 2013, but I've had this question for years. And I asked him straight up, I'm like, how does it feel knowing that, you've put so much money, so much effort, so many resources into these Call of Duty campaigns, these big elaborate campaigns, and nobody plays them? And my man was straight. He's like, yeah, it really hurts that we put so much time and effort into this stuff and nobody bothers because they just jump straight to it. But at the same time, they need to do that because at least at the time, they would have gotten excoriated for not having a single player, even though nobody plays it, So that's why I don't think, and I know when I told you this off air, you were a little surprised because you're kind of newish to Call of Duty. But yeah, the campaign is something people don't even bother with Call of Duty. It is all about the multiplayer. I know guys that all they do, they only play one game a year, Call of Duty, and they come back to just that franchise, have never, ever touched the campaign. They don't care.
Wow. That's surprising to me because, as you know, I told you this. And
yeah.
I'm about to sneeze.
There you go. Bless you.
God, I told you this off air, but I started off playing the campaign. I don't play online. I played online once, and it's awful. Like, I couldn't stand online play. And I went in and I played the story. Some of the best voice acting, some of the best mocap. Those of you who are not playing on, like, a story mode on Call of Duty are missing out tremendously because you are robbing yourself, intentionally, might I add, of an incredible story experience. Shame on you.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because literally people have been saying that for over 15 years and it doesn't matter. People just like, I don't care. I want to play this multiplayer. I want to go shoot people and stuff.
Like, this literally makes me like Greg Miller levels of pissed. Like, my God. Like, you seriously, like, so many people, like, seriously, those of you who don't play the campaign because you're like, I don't want to play the campaign, you're schmucks. Shut the fuck up and play the campaign.
Yeah. But again, here's the thing, like I'm not gonna go that far because I get it. They don't care about that. They just want the competitive stuff, Like they're not buying it for the campaign.
They're not.
Go ahead.
At the same time, they're completely like they're not utilizing the entire like 168 gigabytes that they paid for within Call of Duty.
Yeah, no, I get it, but again, they don't. They're just. It's just basically like a sport to them. It's like. You get together with buddies, you play Call of Duty, and you're good. You don't care about the story. And these are, this is going to sound really bad. They're normies. The normies don't really care about that. It's just like, let me play the game, shut up, let me play,
Yeah. Fucking normies. No, I'm just joking. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, this year's Call of Duty, very interesting. And this is, okay, I've said this on Throwdown. I haven't said this on Twitter yet, but I probably won't because I just don't. I used to be a big troll on Twitter because it was fun. And and my thing with trolling is I did it with just saying innocuous shit, like literally just saying Xbox Game Pass. That was it, just 3 words, and people just lose their minds. But I'm not really about that, even that anymore, because this is what I would tweet out. And I honestly believe this. Call of Duty will sell more copies on PS5 than it will on Xbox, because on Xbox, you effectively get it for free. I'm not saying anything controversial. This is just fact. If you're an Xbox guy, why the hell would you buy Call of Duty either digitally or physically when you already have it on Game Pass, right? What I'm going to be interested to see is, will it shore up Xbox Game Pass subscriptions? Because contrary to popular belief, not every Xbox owner is on Game Pass. As a matter of fact, most Xbox owners are not on Game Pass. Yeah, see, exactly. So I'm because the reason I bring that up is because some of the people have said that the only way we're gonna know if Call of Duty sells good on Xbox is if more Xbox sales happen. No, not necessarily. You're gonna know it if there's more Game Pass subscriptions. But the problem with that is the only way we're gonna know about that is if Microsoft tells us. We're not gonna have an independent third party person verify this. It's basically Microsoft saying, "Trust me, bro," which is not. And I don't like that from any company. I'm like, no, I want some third party verification process here. You know?
And this might be a hot take, though, to be honest, but I don't like that one of their main sources of income is through Game Pass. It's like you are releasing such a big title like Black Ops 6. That's a huge title. You should make it pay only. That way you get the funding that you need, get the funding you deserve, and then whenever it comes down to it, like, make a sale of it on Game Pass for the holiday season. Don't make that one of your primary things for payment, because then more people are going to go through Game Pass, which is a $15 subscription per month, and they're not going to go to other consoles. That way there's healthy competition. By default, the Xbox is making it more popular so that more people go to their platform.
Well, that's what they want. They want Xbox Game Pass subscriptions to go up, and this is I truly believe that the main reason they bought Activision Blizzard is to get Call of Duty, because that fan base is rabid. Just to prove that point, 2011. I don't know. No, I don't know you, because you said your first PlayStation was PS4, right? So you probably don't remember this.
PS4. I got that. I want to say 3 years ago now. Okay.
So in 2011, during the PS3 days, right, there was the infamous PlayStation hack, which led to 3 weeks of no PlayStation at all, no PlayStation Network. Everything was down. You know what happened during that time to the Call of Duty guys that were on PlayStation? The guys who are crack fiends, they bought an Xbox. These guys, they will go where the games are. But interestingly enough, this year, and I believe this has been the case for a couple of years now, Call of Duty is cross-play. So you don't even need to buy a specific console to play with your friends. So I'm curious to see how the combination of being on Game Pass and crossplay will affect digital sales. But at the same time, if Microsoft makes enough money from Game Pass subscriptions, they may say this is justified. It's fine. It's fine that we've lost this many sales on Xbox because we made up for it with X amount of money,
Yeah, exactly. And just as a side note, by the way, yes, I'm sneezing, I'm sniffling a lot. My allergies are hell. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's that time of year. And also remember, even though Call of Duty is on Xbox Game Pass, you can still buy a physical copy of Call of Duty for Xbox if you want. But go ahead.
No, but you know what? Actually, I noticed with that, and that brings up an interesting point that you make with the physical. I have a physical copy of Modern Warfare 2, the remake that they did. And I remember uploading that, and I thought, or downloading it rather. And I thought, this is interesting. They're having you download different components of the game. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, what is going? As a Call of Duty noob, I thought, this is weird. Okay, I thought like just the main game would download. It did it. It downloaded the multiplayer. It downloaded the story. It downloaded all of these other components. And I'm thinking to myself, who has space in their computer or their Xbox for this? Like, this is absolutely obscene. 136 gigabytes, almost 200 gigabytes of a game, and you can pick and choose what to download and everything, but for someone who wants to download it all at once, it's going to absolutely kill their PC.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. But to the point I brought up earlier, think about it. What are most Call of Duty players going to do? They're just going to download the multiplayer and call it a day. They get what they want. So that's why I understand why they broke it up into components.
Yeah, I get it from that perspective. I still don't understand why you guys don't play the fucking campaign.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because that's not what they're in it for. That's why. That's funny.
I feel a certain type of way right now about it.
I
It's
get
just
it.
like the entire reason why you play a game is for the story. What in the I'll stop.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, as I learned, because that's the main reason I play most games. But competitive guys like that doesn't matter. They don't care about story. It's just about getting online and just shooting the shit out of people. You know?
And I'm about to sneeze again. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Why did my allergies decide to attack me right now?
Yeah, they're coming hardcore right now.
Oh my god.
Hope you're not allergic to me.
Yes, I'm allergic to a fellow New Yorker who also likes
Yes.
calzones.
There you go. Oh, I could use one right now.
All right, so the next topic I want to go into is comic books. I've been getting back into my love recently of comic books, and my dad actually, for my birthday, got me the Birth of Venom comic that came out, and it was for $25 because I didn't realize at the time it had 12 series within it. And I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely incredible. And I've been reading it. I've been rereading one of my favorites, The Killing Joke. And it is so nice to get back into comics because I don't know which one's your favorite, but mine, I absolutely love Marvel. Like, I used to not like it years ago for some reason because I like DC more because of Batman and the Joker. But Marvel, like, hands down, Spider-Man, my favorite of all time.
Yeah. So, yeah, with me in comics, and I'm going to tie it back into what I was talking about earlier with fighting games. In the 90s, I had two main loves. Specifically, two main loves. Fighting games, specifically Capcom games, and comic books, specifically X-Men, right? So obviously when we had X-Men versus Street Fighter, it was like but yeah, no, I'm a huge comic fan, been a comic fan all my life. I remember when I was a kid, the trading cards that we had, the Marvel trading cards series 1, 2, and 3, the Hildebrandt brothers, their cards, Joe Jusko, Jim Lee cards, like obsessed with this stuff, right? I kind of fell off towards the late 90s. Things started getting a little silly. Came back in the early 2000s during like when Marvel had their kind of like renaissance during the Knights era, right? Marvel Knights era with Daredevil and then the Ultimates and all that. Then I kind of fell off again a little bit after Civil War because I felt that comic it changed the characters' personalities too much to fit the story. That was a little annoying. And then I kind of got back into comics, Marvel comics specifically around the 2015 or so, and I wasn't really happy with what they were doing. But I had X-Men. It was in Marvel Unlimited, so I just kept reading them. But I'm like, yeah, but I was like, oh, these comics are trash. Why am I doing this? And then I just stopped reading them. But no, I love comics. And the comic I still currently read right now is okay. So Marvel got the license for Conan the Barbarian during the pandemic, right? And they were really good. And they got me into Conan, proper Conan, because the only Conan I've ever known is, Arnold, with his best in life, to slay their women, all this shit, right? So reading Marvel's the new Conan got me to read the old 1930s Robert E. Howard Conan. I'm like, this is fucking awesome, and then I read the Marvel comics from the 70s. Fun fact, Marvel Conan was the first non-superhero comic I've ever read. Like, that's seriously. And I'm like, holy, these comics from the 70s are fucking amazing, And I even bought the big, like, omnibus books and stuff. But now Marvel let the license lapse, and Titan Comics, they got the Conan license, and they're doing killer job. They're up to like issue 12 now. And Jim Zub, it's funny, the writer Jim Zub, he did the last run on Conan and Marvel before they canceled it. And I'm like, yo, this guy gets it, And then they got him as the main guy on this series. And he's even better than he was at Marvel because he's able to just really, like, these comics go ham. They blood, sex, everything. They go nuts, But it's done in like still a classy way. It's not gratuitous, But so, yeah, I still love the medium. I really enjoy reading on like an iPad because it approximates the page size. I don't like doing all the flipping and all this stuff. I like to just hold one tablet up, one page at a time, and all that. And since you're talking about comics, my favorite runs are like, and it's funny because a lot of stuff was either before I was born or when I was still too young to read comics until I got into, because I got into comics in the late 80s, early 90s when I was like, like a preteen. Yeah, Chris Claremont's run on X-Men, absolutely legendary. Like this is like every X-Men comic after that is still in the shadow of it, right? Daredevil specifically. Here's the thing about Daredevil. I got to talk about Daredevil for a bit, so indulge me. Daredevil is my favorite comic book character. Love him, Marvel character. Because here's the thing with Daredevil. He is just popular enough where people care about him, but not popular enough where people will get too upset if you change too much stuff around, right? Yep. So the writers, and I don't know what it is with Daredevil. He attracts these amazing writers, like starting with Frank Miller. Like he had like an almost 30-year run of incredible books, but the original Frank Miller run from the early 80s, like I've reread it a bunch of times. Remember, I'm reading this after the fact. I didn't read it. I was like 3 years old when these things came out, or younger. Yeah. So I read them after. I'm like, this is amazing. Like for example, this is one of my favorite parts. So Daredevil finds Kingpin's like hidden vault, right? And he's trying to open this door. There's no lock on this door. It's just a big metal door, right? For 3 pages, Daredevil is trying to open this door, and Frank Miller gets into the, what's happening to his mind, his body, and stuff he's like his tendons burn, he's ripping and stuff, right? Like just super detail. And Daredevil, after all that, manages to open it just enough so he can slip through, right? So he gets in there, he's all fucked up, right? And then like the way he describes, he's like, I hear thunder, boom, 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 coming close, right? So he's like, what is that? He turns around and he senses, because he can't see. Kingpin opens the door like nothing, right? Comes in. He's like, what are you doing in my vault? Daredevil starts wailing on Kingpin. Kingpin doesn't even move. And then Kingpin just slaps him once, fights over. I'm like, this is fantastic. That's how you set up a villain, like just overpowering. Yeah. And then the final issue was Daredevil, because he's like, okay, what I love about Daredevil, and Frank Miller really set this up, he's a lawyer and a Catholic. So he always feels guilty about the shit he's doing, on both ends. Like the lawyer stuff, not too bad because he's a defense lawyer, so he's not like a prosecutor. He's always trying to. But the thing is, he would sometimes defend people that he knows are criminals. And remember, he's Daredevil. He could tell when they're lying. And there was one guy he was defending, and he got him off scot-free. And then at the end of the trial, he's like, "Oh, Murdoch, you're a great guy. You know what? I murdered that kid." And Daredevil was like, "Wait, what happened?" Then he found out. Yeah, Daredevil. The thing is, the guy had a pacemaker, so Daredevil couldn't tell if he was lying or not because his heartbeat remained steady.
I remember that.
It was so good. And then that night after the court date, Daredevil goes out and beats the fuck out of this guy. But then he felt bad. He's like, I shouldn't have done that. I let my anger control me. So I love that interplay of like he's like trying to do good, but he's a Catholic, so he always feels like he's sinning, and like the best Daredevil writers have played it up. So yeah, Frank Miller run on Daredevil, the Kevin Smith run. Yes, that Kevin Smith. Oh, so good. Yeah, so good. I'm not gonna ruin the ending. The ending is what seals it. I'm like, oh, so good. And then obviously the Brian Michael Bendis run. Oh my God, Ariel, you need to read the Michael Bendis run.
I haven't read that one yet. Yeah.
What's cool about that run is it's even grittier than the Frank Miller run. Like he really strips Daredevil down. He barely even wears a costume most of the time, and then it ends again, just like the way he ended it. Like the next writer, Ed Brubaker, was like, oh shit, how do I deal with this? Because it was so insane. But his run was awesome too. So yeah, I could go on and on, but yeah. Comic books are I love the medium. I love, because I'm a writer, so I obviously love reading, but I love art as well. So it's like you get the best of both worlds and everything. So I'm really happy that you're getting back into it. And yeah, please let me know what comics you want to read. And please let me know what DC comics you want to read, because DC has some good stuff. Like I like growing up in the 90s, I respected DC obviously, but I didn't read them a lot. It was around the 2000s I started reading them more. I'm like, yeah, this is some good stuff. Batman specifically, I know it's so corny to say this, but I love me some Batman. Batman is so psychologically rich, you know?
Especially with the new one that they came out with. I don't know if you saw it. They put it on Amazon first, I believe, and Barnes and Noble, but they came out with a new one because I think there's a new writer for the Batman comics right now.
Yeah, they're always shifting stuff around. But yeah, no, Batman's had a lot of good stuff. And my favorite, so we're talking about superheroes and all that. My favorite superhero of all time is actually Superman, the original, And what I love about Superman is because he is the ideal, like he is the man I would love to be, but I know I cannot be. Like if I had those kind of powers, I would just be like Homelander or somebody fucked up like that. Like okay, like you have Batman. Why does he do what he does, right? Because he saw his parents murdered. He doesn't want anybody else to suffer that. Peter Parker, he let his uncle get killed. He feels guilty. Why does Superman do what he does? Because it's the right thing to do. And I find that so refreshing compared to, it's funny because when Superman was around, that was all the superheroes' motive. I'm doing good for goodness sake. But since now we have so many of these dark heroes, now Superman stands out. It's like he was just raised in a nice, good Christian home, and he wants to do right, And I also love the whole Moses thing going on with him. It's like he was cast out into the sea, and then he did right by his people and everything. Like there's so many allegories with Superman, and I know some people have problems writing him, but I'm like, yeah, it's because you're not using your imagination. Some of the best Superman stories where he's like, oh, my fist can't get me out of this one. What do I do? And he's such a pure-hearted, good guy. It's like, man, that's what I want to be. Superman is so cool, till this day. Even though he does not work as a video game character.
No, he does not. No, and you know what? That's the only part that I really kind of didn't like about Kill the Justice League was that Superman it didn't work as a game character. Like he was an interesting villain archetype, but it was just so kind of cliche the way the entire thing went that even like at the end of the day, like the Suicide Squad wasn't the original Suicide Squad that was in the comic book.
Yeah.
So like you had Crocodile who was there, who was supposed to be there. He was never in that group.
Yeah. So yeah, they kind of did like a movie version of the Suicide Squad. Admittedly, I don't read a lot. I have read some Suicide Squad stuff, but mostly like the newer ones. Like the Suicide Squad I read was basically the movie version because it became popular. But I do remember their comics from like the late 80s and stuff. I would just see them. But in that time I did read, the Death of Superman. That was huge. As a matter of fact, my friend Mike, who's still my friend today, one of my best friends, we met because of that. He brought the Death of Superman comic book to class. We were in 6th grade, and then we just became friends because of that. And then Batman, the whole Bane saga, Nightfall, that was incredible back then. Yeah, Batman is so good. People, if you're watching this, please read The Long Halloween this Halloween. Yes, read that and the follow-up. What was it? Dark Victory. Read those two. Yeah, Dark Victory is a direct sequel to Long Halloween. Long Halloween's better, but yeah, Dark Victory by the same team, Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale. So you'll fall right into it. I could do a whole podcast on comic books.
We should honestly, like I'm coming really back into it, and the thing is like I remember back like after I saw the first what was it, the Joker movie that came out in 2020. No, I think it was 2021 actually that came out. I remember just like my love for the Joker as a character coming back, so I purchased The Killing Joke, and I realized that there's no actual origin story for the Joker.
Isn't. No, that's what's great about him. I remember The Dark Knight, the movie 2008. I remember the first time he's like, let me tell you how I got these scars, right? And he tells a story, and I'm like, I don't want to know Joker's origin. Like, I want him to be pure. And then he tells this story again, but it's different. I'm like, oh my God, that is brilliant. That is great. Yeah,
because he's so manipulative. And the fact that they did the play on where, like, in The Killing Joke, it's the same thing that they utilized as inspiration for the movie as a failed comic, all that kind of thing. But I love the fact that, like, at the very end of the comic book, spoiler alert for you who haven't read it, there's so much of where, like, if kind of to the extent of where he's not going to let Batman catch him because he knows that that would be it, and that cat and mouse game would be over. And he said, if you give me the rope, I'll catch it, but are you actually going to stay there? Are you actually going to be there for me? And it's like, it's so heartbreaking because you see the humanity of the Joker come through, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. By the way, I love The Killing Joke. Fantastic book. Did you ever watch the animated movie?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just recently watched it.
Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. Why I didn't like it, you know?
Yeah, no, I just recently saw it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that broke my heart. I'm like, what are we doing right now? Why are you shoehorning this? I don't want to say it, but why are you shoehorning this thing in there? That's just unnatural to begin with. And you're ruining all the good stuff that's in the book, you know?
I feel like they wanted to take creative liberties that they should not have taken with it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of where, like, especially with a comic, fans of the comics will know when something is out of line with what the story is.
Yeah. But I think even regular people have never seen it. It's like, wait, what is the storyline? What's happening here? You know? But no, regardless, read the original comic, graphic novel, I should say. It's great. And also, one last one I got to mention. Again, this may sound really like, oh, of course you're gonna say that, Tony. But like, if you don't know comics, you need to read Watchmen. That will change your life.
Yeah.
Like it like everything you've heard about Watchmen, it's even better in the book. I like when I read the book, it was already legendary status, right? So I was like, let me check out Watchmen, what we were talking about. I was like, yo, and I think I reread it every other year or so. Like and I still find new things all this time. That ending is so good. Like, I really wish the movie captured it. So I honestly believe the Watchmen movie is really good, very dedicated, but they changed the ending. They changed the ending because the movie just came. It wasn't right after 9/11, but it was very close. And they didn't want those images in the movie because they were too evocative of 9/11. So they changed it. But I felt the original one, you know what? Spoilers. The story's like 30 years old, right? Okay, in the movie, they set it up where Dr. Manhattan was like the bad guy, and in the end, they use his power to blow up a good chunk of New York City, right? It was very devastating scene and all that, destruction and all that, but it was just an empty city, like the hole in the ground, right? Which is still pretty bad, but not what the comic book had. Basically, in the comic book, they set up a fake alien invasion, right? And in the final book, the quote unquote alien invasion comes to fruition, and you have 6 pages of New York City. Everything's intact. Buildings and everything are intact, littered with dead bodies everywhere.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. And no words are in, no dialogue is happening. No bubbles, nothing. It's just the art. And it's just like, it's just haunting. I'm like, whoa! Like, I really wanted the movie to have that.
That would have been so impactful.
It would have been super impactful because it was impactful in the book. But they still kept a lot. A lot of the main stuff, like the heroes show up, and because remember, I read this without knowing anything. So the heroes show up, and you think, oh yeah, they're gonna stop Ozymandias, right? They're gonna stop him, and he's like, he tells him his big elaborate plan. He's like, you really think we're gonna let you get away with that? We're gonna stop you. He's like, what are you talking about? I did this 30 minutes ago. It was like, oh shit. And then you see what happened, so, that is so good. And the movie thankfully does that. It's like he gives this big speech. The hero's like, we're gonna stop you. It's like, yeah, I did this already,
It's interesting you say that because there's a movie that I really think, of it anything it captures the essence of Spider-Man perfectly, is No Way Home. It's one of my favorite movies that they've done for it. The entire series. Like, this was actually something that Paris was talking about, and I said that like all of them would be here in spirit, which they are. You guys are all here in spirit. And I remember seeing a tweet that Paris put out of where he's basically saying like Andrew Garfield is like to paraphrase him, is one of the best like Spider-Man. And I have to agree because like I love Tobey Maguire. That's the one I grew up with. And then I didn't see Tom Holland's Spider-Man until, let's say, recently, like a few days ago, honestly. And I saw No Way Home for the first time a week and a half ago. And his acting as Spider-Man, like Andrew Garfield's, is so on point. Like the emotion of Spider-Man is how I felt whenever I watched Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Interesting.
Like, it's so good. And not only that, like seeing all of them, like just, it's kind of like the Spider-Man meme where all they're just pointing at one another.
Yeah, they're just pointing at each other. Yeah,
and it's just like seeing Andrew Garfield and then Tom Holland and then Tobey Maguire. It's like, this is like seeing Steve from Blue's Clues again. Like, this is absolutely fucking epic.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it because I felt the opposite. I did not like that movie. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say something controversial. Even though I default to Tobey Maguire, I have not really liked any of the movie Spider-Man. None of those guys feel like the Peter Parker I grew up reading.
Well, that's different. Yeah, because you're seeing a version in the comic books and you want that version to live up to what you want to see in the movies.
Yeah. So even with the Tobey Maguire movies, I'm like, I don't know about this. Even though till this day, Spider-Man 2, one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. Fantastic. But I'll say this is what I want to say about each Spider-Man since we're talking about it. Tobey Maguire. What can I say about him? Which one was better? Decent Peter Parker and decent Spider-Man, right? With Peter Parker, I felt he was a little too weird and nerdy. Peter Parker's not that weird and nerdy. He is, but not that much. And his Spider-Man didn't joke enough, right? What's the guy after him? In between. Andrew Garfield. His Peter Parker, I didn't like at all. I felt he was too cool. He was too cool. But his Spider-Man was good. Joked a lot. His Spider-Man was good. And then Holland, both his Peter Parker is okay, and his Spider-Man is a little better than
Yeah, but you have to admit, like in the movie when they were talking about like their webbing situation, that was iconic Peter Parker.
Yeah, but the reason I bring all this up is because again, out of all of them, Maguire, the second one, right? Garfield. He was my least favorite. But when I saw No Way Home, I'm like, why didn't we get that Spider-Man in his own movies? He was good in that. He was a good Peter Parker and a good Spider-Man in No Way Home. So I'm like, wait, what happened? Why didn't we get this guy? But my problem with No Way Home, it just felt like, hey, remember these better Spider-Man movies from 20 years ago? Like that's the whole thing I felt. And it was so weird because I went to go see this movie not even on opening day. I went to a special screening with a bunch of fans, right? Hardcore Spider-Man fans. So at the end of the movie, the crowd went fucking nuts in the theater, right? And I'm sitting next to my friend Manny. I'm like, yo, are you fucking kidding me? This movie was crap. Because the whole setup was stupid. It's like Dr. Strange's like, yeah, I got you, kid. I'll ruin the universe just for you. I'm like, wait, serious? Really? And somebody even brings it up. It's like, we could just call the student dean office and just tell them about the mistake. No, that's fine. I'll change the time-space continuum because we need this movie to continue, and then it's just all these references. The only thing I really liked about the movie was this is going to sound so weird, the very end where not Venom. No, because not that. When he makes his own Spider-Man costume, puts it on, and leaves, I'm like, hey, he's finally not going to be Tony Stark Jr. anymore. He's going to be his own Spider-Man. So that was good because that was my problem with the Holland movies. It just felt like they felt like Iron Man movies. They didn't feel like Spider-Man movies.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it, but I can understand that perspective. I thought you were talking about the very end with Venom because I freaked out when I saw Venom at the
Oh no, I groaned. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Those Venom movies, I've never like fully seen them, but is that all the clips I've seen? I'm like, this is terrible. I'm Venom. I'm like, why are you talking like that? What the hell is this? And then I'm like, how are you gonna have a Venom movie without Spider-Man? This makes no sense. You
That
know,
doesn't make sense to me, but I will say that Venom is probably one of my favorite anti-heroes like of all time
Well, no,
because
Venom as a character, fantastic.
yeah,
I love me some Venom. And
yeah,
again, I remember I was reading this stuff when it first came out.
yeah.
I love the slow reveal in the comics of this guy. Like, who's this guy, Eddie Brock? What's going on here? And then, like, with the black costume and all that from Secret Wars, that was great. Venom was one of my favorite, and still is. I love me some Venom. It's just those movies. I don't know about all that, but Venom as a character, great. I love Venom. One of the first comics I ever bought was it was like a play on Hamlet. You know, where like Hamlet's like holding the skull or whatever. So it was Venom holding a Spider-Man skull. It's like, wherefore art thou Spider-Man or something. It was great. You know,
I remember that. Oh my god, I loved it so much, and I thought that was such a witty thing to do in a comic.
yeah, it was great. I was like, it's like a kid, I didn't know what that was. I'm like, oh, he's holding Spider-Man's skull. You know, I didn't know there was like high art.
You know what's interesting though is that
Yeah,
like oddly enough, those are my comfort movies. A lot of the time are the Venom movies. The
yeah,
new one just came out today,
yeah.
and I know that a month later, I think they're going to be putting on HBO Max. So I'm getting
Okay.
Taco Bell and enjoying that because I am
Hey,
such a fan of the Venom movies. Like I love how witty they are, and I love how like for me the humor of Venom. I thought that at first it was going to be kind of cringy and everything, but it fits well for some reason. It kind of fits well.
yeah.
Especially in the video games. Like, they didn't go as humorous with Venom in the video games, but in Spider-Man 2, I cannot tell you how much I freaked out when the line "We are Venom" came up. I was all in. I was so happy.
Nice.
Oh my god, Spider-Man 2 has to be like one of my top 10 favorite games. It's just incredible.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's great.
Yeah. If there is any topics that you specifically would like to discuss or any type of like games or anything like that, the floor is open to you right now.
Yeah. So yeah, right now, after kind of a so-so year, actually so-so generation, I would say of gaming. I'm really looking forward to Monster Hunter Wilds. I That's gonna really bring me back. I'm gonna be playing with friends as much as I can in a short amount of time because I can really play maybe an hour or two a night. Because adulting. But I'll definitely be going ham during the weekends. Even if here's one thing I learned. Um, once I got a full time job, it's like even if I can't put 15 hours into a game per day, it's okay if it just takes me longer. Like it took me much longer to beat Elden Ring than it would have if I didn't have a job. But you know what? Since it took me longer, I got to be with it longer, even if it was only incrementally. So even if I don't get everything out of Monster Hunter for like months, I'm going to be playing Monster Hunter for months. So, and that's going to make me happy, so that's a good thing. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I'm very curious to see what the PS5 Pro is going to bring to the table. Even though, like I said, I still believe the majority of people don't necessarily need it. I'm a tech guy. I want to see what this thing could do. I'm going to be watching Digital Foundry religiously, seeing all their little breakdowns. Instead of the Digital Foundry, they do such a good job. I know they get hate and stuff, but those guys are generally pretty objective about stuff. Like, hey, here's the numbers that we found. But I noticed their hate changes depending on what console they're talking about. Like they're either Sony apologists or Xbox apologists. So that lets me know they're doing a good job. If you get like me, I would get hate when I get hate for both sides. I know I'm doing a good job. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then next year, I want to throw it over to you. Like, what are you looking forward to game wise next year? Because again, for me, Monster Hunter Wilds is probably gonna be the big one. Because I'm not sure if Wolverine's gonna be dropping next year or not, but that one for sure. But I'm curious to hear what you have going on because I feel because you have different tastes than me, and I like that. So I'm like, because I like getting your perspective on stuff because it helps. Like like right now, you're just putting out all these games. I'm like, well, I never heard of that. I want to check that out. That's cool. So what are you looking forward to?
So I'm really interested to see what Silent Hill games drop. I know they have Silent Hill Forta that's going to be dropping at some point. I'm really interested to see where they go because when I think of Silent Hill, I think of the perception of like 1, 2, 3, The Room, Homecoming, PT Silent Hills, rest in peace, to be new stories, new concepts, new psychology that's going into it. So I'm really interested to see like what Konami is going to be putting out. Every time that we like look at Konami now, we always kind of saw them as kind of like a footnote to a degree, because we didn't have much faith in what they were going to bring to the table, because they dropped Kojima, they dropped a lot of the stuff that was happening, and now that they're kind of resurging with more kind of like, I want to say fan I don't know, more appreciation for what the fans are and what they're doing.
Yeah. Like they've released a bunch of like really cool collections and stuff. So I agree with you. But you know, since you're on that track, because you've made me curious about this. So, do you think that, like, you know, because obviously Silent Hill 2, big success. Do you think that will like spur Konami on to really like put a lot more effort and money behind Silent Hill? And do you think they'll do it in a way where people don't immediately get burnt out on it? Because that's the problem that could happen too. It's like you throw too much of a good thing at us, it may spoil it. So yeah, what do you think about that? Do you think we are now either in the middle of or about to be in the middle of a Silent Hill renaissance?
A Silent Hill renaissance. We're about to go into one. If they do it the way Capcom did it, with coming out with remake of number 2 and number 3, they're going to be golden. Because if they do that, they will up their credibility so much, especially if they have the Blober team do it. Don't have different studios work on different projects. Create a steady repertoire with one studio that you know already did a great job with something. Because so far, I am almost at the halfway point of Silent Hill 2, and I can say that this is Game of the Year material.
Oh, wow. Even though it's a remake, you think it's like Game of the Year material?
Absolutely. The way that the ambiance is done, the way that the psychology and the mental health is being taken into account, I am so incredibly proud of the fact that they took Silent Hill 2 as a project seriously.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, they didn't just half-ass it. Like, they really put effort into it.
Oh,
That's
my God.
Good to know.
Like, even with the character Pyramid Head, they understood the assignment.
Okay, that's good to know.
So with that, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen, because, you know, not only with all of these new Silent Hills coming up, Blober Team actually, I'm going to double check this and I'll edit this out if need be, but I believe I saw a statement from Blober Team that they are willing and probably going to be doing a remake of other Silent Hill titles.
Yeah, that's good. And since you brought up Bloober Team, I don't know if you saw this like statement they put out, basically saying, because you know they know that people kind of see them as like a mid-tier developer, right? So they were like, yeah, we want to make something that kicks ass. We want to know, it's like, did you see that statement? They were like, we want to be known as a kick-ass studio. So I'm like, that's cool. So like, because it's true that a lot of Bloober Team's games have just been so. But I'm like, if you give people enough time, more experience, yeah, and it sounds like from what you're telling me and from other people's experience, it seems like Silent Hill may be like they're coming of age, so to speak. You know?
What's interesting though is that like the first game I played from them was Layers of Fear, and I absolutely loved Layers of Fear. I loved the Blair Witch game that they did. Wasn't, after in retrospect, wasn't too much of a fan of the medium. I like certain aspects about it, but the story and the way they handled mental health wasn't my favorite. But I think that the way that they grew and they understood how to tackle mental health in Silent Hill, because the way that it's approached in the remake is they paid just so much respect to it, and that's all I can ask for.
Yeah. Without spoilers, because you said you like the way they handled mental health. So how does it differ than the way they handled it in the original?
Well, in the original, they just went all in. Like they didn't really kind of consider what person might be watching and what someone might be suffering with. Like for the example, there is not a spoiler, but there is this iconic scene with Pyramid Head, and he is, our wording, a mannequin, but that's the perception of what's being given to the audience. That's not what Konami had intended for. That's not what the developers had intended for. That's just what people perceived upon seeing the actual scene. So when I saw that scene at first when I played the original, I thought, oh my God, this is like, I started laughing and everything, probably out of nerves. I didn't know what I was seeing. And then after people telling me what it was, I'm like, oh, I feel like shit for laughing. But in my previous podcast that I did with Marco Meatball, He told me that that's actually was not their intention at all for it to be perceived in that way.
Interesting.
So it was really fascinating. Like, I'm not going to give, like, you know, massive spoilers and everything like that, but the way that they did it is almost, I want to say, to the likes of what Resident Evil 1 Remake was for the GameCube.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is because it's like how much liberties did they take with the remake? It seems like this is like yeah, so it seems like this is like a Resident Evil 2 remake level of a remake, not just like here's the same game with nicer graphics. This is like we're remaking. That's pretty awesome. And I like when they do that. Like again, Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remakes, they're still the same game at their core, but they're different. They're very different.
Yes.
You know, but even though they're different, I still feel they capture the spirit of the originals. And it sounds like from what you're telling me that Silent Hill remake does that. It's the same but different, but captures the spirit.
It does. And the thing is that this might be a hot take, but I'm enjoying this more than I did the remake of Resident Evil 4.
Do you think that's because correct me if I'm wrong here. It seems to me like you're a bigger fan of Silent Hill than Resident Evil in general. Though.
There's more substance in Silent Hill than there is in Resident Evil.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? So I think to me, that's not a hot take. I'm like, you saying you like the Silent Hill 2 remake more than Resident Evil? Of course that makes sense. It's you.
You know what's interesting about that? It really kind of pissed me off during the Resident Evil 4 remake is that they changed part of the story.
Yeah. And that's the reason I was hesitant to play. Because,
They changed the part with Louis. With Louis, they made him alive longer. And it's like they kill him off at a certain point in the original game. What are you guys doing exactly?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Here's the thing with Resident Evil 4 remake, it was so good I could kind of forgive it, but at the same time I can't forgive it because to me the original Resident Evil is the perfect game. I know some people there are some things that some people don't like oh I can't move and shoot at the same time, but it was designed that way and it works that way. So with that said, even though some of the changes are not to my liking, I still think Capcom did a really good job. Remember how you said you were very nervous about Silent Hill 2 remake? I felt the same way about Resident Evil 4 because that's the game right there. For you guys who don't know, every game that you see with a third-person action camera behind the shoulder, Resident Evil 4 was the first game to do that. It standardized that stuff. Literally play any third-person shooting game before Resident Evil 4. They were not like that. It was just like they couldn't figure out where the hell to put the camera and stuff. Resident was like, how about we just have like the character's torso, have them over here, like what is that name in like photography, like the 3 force rule or whatever.
Oh, geez. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
like
don't know
keep
what
it in. Yeah. The rule of it's like the thirds or whatever. But yeah, so it's like keep it in that angle and just over the shoulder, and it just works.
Yeah. Even with Resident Evil 1 remake, like it worked with that kind of like higher up camera angle, but they still did in the remake that kind of like slight over the shoulder, but not fully like you see in Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. So I think that I like the fact I like it when companies remake their games and they bring it to a modern audience, but they capture the spirit of the original. Because again, a lot of people are.
Yeah, you'll even see my playthrough that I did of where like I'm commenting on like how they did the rust and everything, like the Silent Hill rust and everything. They did it so well it almost like in certain points looks like a 1v1. Like it's like the same game, better graphics, better controls. Like the way that you're seeing it, it kind of reminds me of the movie Silent Hill, but in a game in the best way possible.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think do that and also just make sure the original is still available for people to play as well. You and I, we feel the same way about game conservation. It's like we feel companies should do a little bit better job. So that would be really good. As well as like give the remake. So like, because a kid is not going to want to play the old Silent Hill, but we will want to play it, So yeah, no, it's great. I even though I have bemoaned like the fact that we've gotten so many remakes compared to new games, it's still good to get those, especially if you don't get a lot of games like that now.
And not only that, that's not the only game I'm actually interested in for
Hmm.
next year. I'm really looking forward to Death Stranding 2 so
Oh
much.
yes.
Oh
Oh
my God.
yes.
I'm so
Yeah.
looking forward to reviewing that. There's so many things about that game that I don't know exactly what direction he's going to take it in. Like, Kojima is a master at, like, the
Hmm.
fine art of anticipation and dread. So
You
ready for
know.
the Game Awards. I'm so ready. Because I
Yeah.
know for a fact that, because, like, people have to understand that there has to be like a thing of where you say, I know what's going to win, but I also have an opinion of what I want to win. There are two separate things entirely. So what I personally think is going to win is what is it? Oh my God, Astrobot. That is going to win Game of the Year.
Yeah.
But what I really want to win is
Silent Hill.
no Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
Because Silent Hill as a
yeah.
remake, I don't think it could be a contender just because it is a remake and everything.
I agree,
Do I think it should win? Yes and no, because I want like a game on its standalone on its own 2 feet that isn't a remake to actually win. But as a remake on its own, it should win in its own category.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I've said that myself. I don't think remakes should qualify for Game of the Year, but they should have their own category because, especially since we've gotten so many of them. And I do think remakes need to be really good. Remakes need to be recognized. But yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I honestly don't know what's going to win this year. In previous years, I always have a pretty good, like last year, it was easy. I'm like, Baldur's Gate has this on lock, but I haven't really seen a quote unquote industry darling game this year. Astrobot is probably the closest, so that could be it, but I still have a hard time seeing a game like that winning Game of the Year because it's still a little too cutesy, for the lack of a better term.
Or Stellar Blade could possibly win.
I hope the game doesn't get snubbed because a lot of critics didn't like it, which I found kind of weird. But I do think it will get recognition for sure. I love Stellar Blade because I'm so used to playing Western and Japanese games, and this is a Korean studio. I'm like, this is totally different. This is on some other level, and I like that. And even when I played it's kind of interesting when I played Black Myth Wukong. I did feel familiar because I've watched a lot of Chinese Hong Kong movies and stuff. I'm like, oh, it kind of feels like that. But since I'm not very familiar with like Korean media, it felt like, whoa, like this is out there. But then I got really obsessed. I'm like, oh yeah, Korea, what's going on over there with the entertainment? Like apparently
what's interesting is that like Lies of P is also from a Korean studio as well. Yeah.
So then I did a little bit of digging, and I'm pretty sure I'm saying stuff that people already know, but I think around like in the 2000s, the government had this concerted effort, like, hey, we want to have our culture spread out more around the world, right? And Koreans, they really value aesthetics, beauty, and all that. And I'm like, yo, Stellar Blade's a gorgeous looking game, very top notch stuff. And like I said, it just felt very different. It's like, okay, there's a little bit of Western stuff, a little bit of Eastern stuff, but it's its own thing. Even if the story itself is kind of derivative, just being honest, but it felt very different. So I hope it gets recognition, at least in like the visual aspect or something. That would be nice. And I wonder what's going to win. Never mind. I was going to ask what's going to win fighting game of the year. It's probably going to be Tekken 8 because that's like
or maybe the new Zelda
one.
game. Just joking.
Yeah, well, Zelda is a fighting game. You're trolling me right now.
The new Zelda game that came out for the Switch.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think so, Ariel. Maybe I need to explain to you what a fighting game is.
Listen, there's so much happening with Zelda right now because I'm losing track of all the stuff that's coming out. Like I was actually gifted a code for the new Zelda game that came out for the Switch, and I'm going to be going into it, and it's like, I am an old head whenever it comes to Zelda games because my first one was Wind Waker, and I absolutely love like the old school ones. Was not a fan of Breath of the Wild at all.
I didn't like it either. Yeah, I didn't like it either.
I, for some reason, really love Tears of the Kingdom. Like that for me has become a comfort game. But this new one, I don't know what it is. I feel like the story is the same in every single Zelda game we get into.
Yeah. Well, this new one, isn't it like where you are playing Zelda? Like, isn't that the big hook? So yeah, maybe that'll win Game of the Year. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, you want to talk about cutesy. That's as cutesy as you can get, at least to
Yeah,
Astrobot. It has, like, this really overarching premise. Not to down Zelda, because, she's great too. But it's
yeah,
one of those things of where, I don't know, that you have such a toss-up because you could have, like, DLC of the year as well. In that case, I feel like
yeah,
Diablo's DLC would win.
yeah. Do you think it'll win despite the fact that Diablo 4 had such a rocky, cycle so far?
Yeah, because the story is one of its best-selling points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like the reviews that have come out for it have been really good. I feel like it's not something of where, like a lot of DLCs that come out. You know what? Now that I say that, I'm remembering Shadow of the Erd Tree. Never mind, that's going
Yeah.
to win.
Yeah, that's the DLC of the
That's,
year.
that came out with its own statue, 9 inches of Mesmer. Okay, let's not
Yeah, there
forget.
you go. Yeah, that was great. That was so good. I love just going back into that world, getting fucked up for hours by these bosses. Fantastic.
It's one of those DLCs of where it's kind of like the painted world of Arameus. You never forget it.
Yeah, yeah.
But one of the next things I actually wanted to get into before we conclude tonight's podcast is, what are some of your top tech pieces that you've gotten the chance to go over this year that you would highly recommend for people?
Oh, tech. Um, okay, if you could afford it, I would recommend the Asus ROG Ally. It's a gaming handheld. And I got a little story behind that, right? Um, because there's always the thing. It's like, oh, do I get a console? Do I get a laptop? Do I get a PC? And I'm like, you could kind of get them all in this handheld. There was a friend of mine who was looking for a new laptop, and obviously I'm a laptop reviewer, so that's my wheelhouse. And I'm asking him what he wants in his system and all that. And then I was like, hey, dude, why don't you just buy an ROG Ally? You could use that as your main computer. And he was like, because it costs less than $1,000. The most upgraded version, $700, and you can literally connect it to a monitor or a mouse and keyboard and use it as a computer. And I'm like, and at the end of the day, you could take it home, take it out on the road and play. He did that as his main work computer. He's a lawyer, by the way, and he's been using Asus ROG Ally as his main computer for work, and then his main gaming machine, and he loves it. He's like, this is great. It does both adequately. So I would actually recommend that. The only caveat I would have is, and this is not a problem if you're using it for work, but if you're just using this as a gamer, you have to deal with Windows 11 bullshit. You have to install Windows 11. You're going to be asked if you want to install Microsoft 365, all this nonsense. And Windows 11 doesn't play very nice with like handheld controls, but if you want a machine that's both a really good gaming handheld and a computer, get the Asus ROG Ally. It's $700. It's less than a PC, and you get to play games that are graphically and performance-wise on par with the PS4 Pro. So that's the because again, I'm trying to keep it gaming here. So that's the tech I would absolutely recommend. Get the Asus ROG Ally, and if you can't afford the $700 one, you could get the previous year's model, which is like $500. And that is, again, that one I actually specifically for 1 week use it as my work PC at the office, and it was fine. I had no problems using it. I hooked up my keyboard, my monitor, my mouse, and it had no lag or nothing. I had a shit ton of tabs open. It handled everything just fine. So I definitely recommend that. And and actually, yeah, it's funny because the new one is the same price as the PS5 Pro. But you can actually take it wherever you want.
That's unbelievable, actually. Oh my God. But actually, I do have to recommend the headphones I'm wearing currently.
Ooh.
Because if you guys have a wired setup for your game capture, and this specifically for gamers, I would recommend, because I have a Flint D4P as my primary capture card source, and it requires a headset so you can actually hear the gameplay and everything. If you are a wired girly, you're a wired guy, wherever you have the capability to get one of these, the Razer headset, the Kraken.
Ooh.
It's so good. I've had this for the past almost 5 years now. It has lasted me so well. The audio is incredible, but if you're doing video editing, if you have more of a reliance on something that's wireless, you're doing the dishes and you want to listen to music while it's on the computer, this is the Logitech headset that came out with the Aurora collection, and it is by far, I think, one of the best headsets I've ever used. No, Logitech did not pay me or anything like that to say this. I just really love this headset. I've had it for the past almost 3-4 weeks now, and it's lasted me through everything, through video editing, through doing stuff out there, getting the mail, everything. It's really, really good.
Yeah. By the way, I'm really glad you brought that up because this entire time that we've been talking, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, what headset is that? Like now since again, I've been a tech reviewer for like 3 years, so now I can't help it. It's just like I see tech every, I'm like, ooh, what is that? So I was gonna actually ask you afterwards, but I'm glad you told everybody now, and I'm really glad you bring that. That's a cool little segment. It's like, what gaming tech do you recommend? Because that's not really something a lot of people in our space talk about. But you and I are also tech heads, so why not tell people about gaming tech? Beyond. Even though I did it too, beyond just handhelds,
Yeah, and that's the thing too. When I worked at Windows Central, I actually did one tech piece, and it was on the headset, the Razer headset, and that was the first tech article that I ever wrote.
Oh, nice.
And I loved writing about tech. Like, listen, if anybody needs
it's fun.
a tech writer, it's so much fun. Oh my gosh, it's one of those things too of where like I actually reviewed a laptop for my mom because she was she was asking me, what can I use and what are the benefits of it, because I know that you're into tech, you do all this stuff, and I realized, I was like, shit, I can add something else to my resume, a tech writer, because I absolutely fucking love it.
Yeah,
It's
and you've
so
done
good.
it. You've literally done it. By the way, real quick, even though this keyboard is like an older model, I recommend let me see if I can hold it up without pressing anything that's going to turn things off. This is the Logitech G915, fantastic 10 keyless keyboard, great for low profile. What I like about it is, since it's low profile, it doesn't get in the way of like my mic arm here, which is really cool. The only problem I have with it is, and I really hope we get an updated version of this, it still uses micro USB for charging. I'm like, what are we doing? But the thing is, if you have it set up the way I do, I barely have any backlighting. This thing lasts me for like a month before I need to charge it. I don't need to worry about it. But yeah, so I definitely recommend that. And it's funny you bring up tech. I'm going to keep rambling on. I could talk about tech forever, obviously. Back in the day when I streamed Monster Hunter World, I used to use the Elgato capture card, but that was the old version. So now I'm gonna, because your boy does have contacts at Elgato, I'm gonna reach out to them and see if I get the newer one, so I can stream using that. So that'll be cool. I actually did. I could say this. There's no NDAs. I did have a meeting with Elgato a couple of weeks ago. Like they showed me they have this new line. The Neo line. It's basically you get the mic, the lights, camera, and the little stream deck, but it's like more affordable versions of them. Like apparently you everything I just mentioned, you get all that for like around $300 or a little more, which is not bad at all. Super cheap, So I'm like, when I was looking, I'm like, yo, this is like a starter streamer pack. It's like, that's literally why we made it, bro.
Wow. That'll be so good for people who are just getting into the industry.
Yeah, so I think that, I think I want to, since I've done streaming before, I need more robust stuff, but I think that'll be good. And what's cool about it is you could pack it all up and take it where you want, because they said they want it to be, because a lot of streamers also do their thing on the road, so they made sure that everything was like collapsible and everything, which is so really cool. Yeah, shout out to Elgato. We're not being paid by Elgato, by the way. Just had to give them a shout out.
Oh man, you see, and I could talk about tech all day, because for me, like, tech is something of where if I see something that looks good but also runs very well, I am all in for it. And that's
gotta have
too.
both.
Yeah,
I'm really glad you said that. It's got to look good. It's got to look good.
It's got to look good. I mean, like, even when I worked at Windows Central, I actually proposed an idea to do articles on the Raspberry Pi, because it was one of those things of where, if we're going to be talking about niche tech, that's one of the most niche things to talk about, where people literally can make their own computer, take it on the road, and do different things with it. Like, you have so many Pis that are available to build that have 4K graphics in it. We didn't end up running the piece, but it was one of the more interesting, I think, ideas to be brought, because we don't really see too much news pieces on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, you know what it is with the Raspberry Pi? I think it's because it's both niche and ubiquitous. You know, it's like
Yes.
so it's like oh, who cares? Those things are all around everywhere. But it's great. It's funny you bring up Raspberry Pis. I want to give a shout out to I call him my unofficial cousin, Joey Polanco. We're not related at all, but I just like calling him back because I'm like, because his last name's Polanco, you know, just like me, also Dominican. So he took a Raspberry Pi and he put a bunch of like, he put every retro game on it, right, and a bunch of emulators and stuff, and then I put it inside this little case that looks like a little Super Nintendo. So, and I plug a controller, I get to play that on my 4K TV, and it looks great. So it just shows you how like the Raspberry Pi is just so versatile that way,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. I mean, like, I would highly recommend for anybody who wants like a small project to be able to have over the summer or even like during Christmas vacation. Like, seriously, make your own Raspberry Pi, like little mini retro gaming console, because it's so worth it. It's so worth. My dad actually made like 4 or 5 of them to have like little TVs to have, you know, while he's cooking or while he's doing stuff, you know? So I think that it's so cool because, like, you know, while my dad is retired right now, he gets to do more of the coding and more of like the tech stuff that he wants to do. So I think it's so awesome because I'll see like these different little wires here and modules and everything, and I'm just like, that looks adorable.
It's fun.
But Tony, I have to say thank you so much for joining me in tonight's podcast. It was so much fucking fun.
Yeah, no, this was a blast. I hope everybody has as much fun as we did. I was just chilling tonight. Like like I said, I've been like working a lot, and there's going to be a lot of things coming from me soon. So that's why I'm like, I'm just going to hang out with Ariel tonight and just decompress, because every time I'm with you, it lifts my spirits. It makes like there's less weight on me. It's good stuff. So I'm really glad we got to catch up.
Yeah, it's going to be really awesome to see the stuff that you have upcoming. I'm really excited about the reviews upcoming. I get, spoilers, so nostalgic and sentimental in my Resident Evil review that I'm doing. They're not going to be actually separate reviews. 1, 2, and 3 for the remasters are going to be all in one review.
Nice.
So I'm really excited about that. And
by the way, thank you for continuing to put out long form content, because I'm not a fan of these shorts and stuff. Like when I fire up a podcast like yours, I know I'm going to be in for a treat. I get comfortable, get my favorite snack, get a coffee, and I'm good, because I know I'm going to be told not only like a good story, but like a really good presentation and all that. So thank you for continuing to make content for people to have like long attention spans like me.
Of course. It's why I do long playthroughs, you know? It's why I do still do game playthroughs. It's why I have 45-minute episodes of where I'll just go into a game. And that's the thing too, of where it's like, I really appreciate that, because it's like, I always wonder if people really enjoy the long form content, but apparently you guys do. So
I do. Like, let's keep it going. It takes me 30 minutes to get to work. I don't want this podcast to be over in 5 minutes. Give me some good stuff. And I want more on the way back, you know?
Right. I love that. I really appreciate that. And you know what's really cool about it is that I get to sit down with people who I just respect in the industry, like yourself, and I get to call you one of my best friends. That just means it's so humbling to me, you know?
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's fun because we've known each other for a bunch of years, and we're obviously going to probably know each other for the rest of our lives. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? I feel like it's so unique, of where I don't know if any other industry has the camaraderie that the gaming industry has, you know?
Yeah, I found that same camaraderie in tech as well, which is really kind of cool. As a matter of fact, I will say this. I actually slightly enjoy the tech industry more because it's more mature people. You don't see a lot of scumbags coming at each other, you know, there's a little bit of a, not to get too into it, there's a little bit of a clique thing, like high school clique thing happening in gaming sometimes, where you're like, oh no, we're too good to talk to you. You know, I've never gotten that sense at all when it comes to tech. But I with that said, yeah, the gaming community is very cool, and I like the fact that gaming is so big yet it's also so small at the same time. Everybody knows each other, you know. So yeah, no, gaming is still fun. You know, even though there's be some BS, obviously, that we both have to deal with. I still think at the end of the day, the good outweighs the bad, you know?
Yeah. I will say
otherwise
this
we wouldn't keep doing this stuff.
Yeah, and because I just feel fucking petty right now, take me off your fucking list, JT. You asshole. Sorry. Jesus Christ. If you guys like our faces and what we do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.